wasn't going to talk about this video, but I think that it is it's important. It's one of those issues that I don't really talk about, I don't really care about, but it gives you a sign of the times. There's people I speak to who think that the world's getting better or becoming more tolerant. Maybe it is. I don't see it that way. I think Trump gave some very vicious antisocial elements of our society a space to breathe. It gave them legitimacy. And I think that this is an example of that, that freedom to breathe. So, there was the VFW in Ohio, Hudson, Ohio, Memorial Day celebration. Let's see, they had a well, what I'm reading is their charter was suspended, but in essence, they had an officer, they had an army officer out there speaking. His name was, what's his name again here? Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Barnard Kempter. He did a speech and he spoke about African Americans and their good contributions, and his mic was cut. Let's read this here. It was that relevant to our program for the day. The theme of the day was honoring Hudson veterans. State lead says investigation found that they did receive a copy of his speech in advance, and they asked him to remove a portion of the speech where he described how newly freed black slaves gave an honorable burial to deceased Union soldiers shortly after the end of the Civil War. They knew when to turn the volume down and when to turn it back up. I think that's important. That's important to know here. Kempter kind of touched me because I grew up with people like him who, even when it happened, he's very nice about it. He's very pleasant. He said, I think on the video he said something about, I need to move a little bit closer so they could hear. And then I think he said later on, like an interview, he said something like he thought it was by accident or something. And whereas just when I heard it just now, I realized that no, this is deliberate. This is deliberate. This is that good old redneck stuff here. That you had Vietnam veterans years ago that did speeches and they do stuff they do like anti-war, peace movement speeches. They would cut the audio, the speakers and stuff. If you watch Forrest Gump, he did his speech on the movie. They cut it's the same old shit. Same old shit. You can't reason with people, so you have to sabotage them. This is what I expect. State Legion officers, the action were a violation of the ideals and purpose of the American Legion and concluded, quote, a good and sufficient cause exists to revoke, cancel, or suspend the charter of Lee Bishop Post numbers 464. We're deeply saddened by this and stand in unity and solidarity with the black community, all people of race, color, religion, sex, and gender. To those who are exclusive of such persons will know that the behavior is not acceptable in the American Legion, in our homes, our hearts, our communities, in private, public, or anywhere. Continue to educate the value of diversity, being different amongst each other is what makes us better together. I just learned this, pulling this up, that they suspended the charter and the leader resigned. I think the beauty of stuff like this is that it's kind of like police shootings of black people where they're like unarmed black folks and the DA's like, well, I'm not going to take before a grand jury. Basically killing the case. And then they lose their chance of re-election. It's bittersweet because it's sad justice isn't done. But it's like, okay, this is the hill you want to die on. I hear a lot about people saying like, oh, well, cancel culture, we can't say anything, can't do anything. And then I see stories like this, and it's like, this is what you're fighting for, white man? You're fighting for the right to cut off a retired lieutenant colonel who wants to talk about freed slaves at the end of the Union. end the Civil War, burying Union dead. This is what this is the hill. This is the hill you want to die on. Is this like this is really okay now? I think that it's a reminder of kind of what these type of organizations are, that they're remaining in the past. It's amazing because I remember white folks when I was a kid. It wasn't like this. Like they didn't do that. There was like they wanted to pick the good, which was like conservative black people and like black people that like walked the line and like, you know what I mean, tiptoed the line, never had a traffic ticket, you know, all that stuff. And it's amazing to see white people saying that we don't even want to hear you talk about those niggers. These are niggers. These are people we don't even want you talking about. We don't even want to respect the people who played by the rules. Doesn't matter. They're still inferior, and it's really amazing to see someone do that, and then like think that like you thought there's no consequences. You believe you would do this. I mean, that old man Kemp there seemed like a nice guy, seemed like a humble man, nicer than I would have been. And you think that there'd be nobody out here would say, "Hey, that's wrong. That's wrong." Like you really think that there'd be no get back? Status quo. Status quo. You know, it's shocking. And it goes back to something I talked about in an earlier video about respectability politics and how for me there's no value. I don't care about that. I don't care about being accepted. I don't care about any of that stuff anymore. That all the stuff I heard growing up was BS about working hard and going to work earlier and staying at work later and getting up earlier and it's going to get you somewhere. It's all a bunch of crap. It always was and always will be. And that this narrative of meritocracy, you know, oh, if those thugs didn't talk back to the cops, they wouldn't have got shot. If he didn't sag his pants, if he had a job, he wouldn't have got shot. You know, and you need to just, you know, mind your business, stay out the way. That's all a bunch of bullshit. That's just stuff white people say to I call it white splaining. And this is an example of that. That's all a bunch of bullcrap. None of that matters. That they'll give you, that their role, these people I'm talking about, is to give you as much hell as they can for as long as they can, wherever they can, period. And if it's Memorial Day and it's an Army colonel talking about the effort of freed slaves and how they contributed to the Union, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if you have a job. They're still going to give you hell. Period. That doesn't make a difference. That's just stuff they say out here that, you know, halfway sounds right. If you want a thug, they're protesting a thug. He shouldn't have been sagging his pants. If he had just paid his bills, if he had a damn job, that's all a bunch of bullshit. That's all. Remember I said white supremacy is a lens. It's a lens in which to see the world. Like glasses, you know, some people will see well out of them. Some people, it makes it worse. I say worse. Same thing. And that's what this is. It's surprising that in 2021, someone would do this blatantly. But it's, I always talk to y'all about my viewpoint. From my viewpoint of a black man from the South, I grew up with elderly people. I grew up with people that were in the service. My grandfather was in the Army draft, World War II. My uncle was drafted in World War II. You know, cousin was in the service. My uncle was in the Marine Corps. My dad was in the Marine Corps, Vietnam. I mean, I'm always coming at you from the point of view that they had, which is of just how bad it was years ago. That it wasn't this. No, we're fighting Nazism. No, it was bad. It was bad. Don't, you know, I talk about that. It's like I talked to you about the Virginia video of the Army lieutenant that got pepper sprayed by the police because he wouldn't move fast enough. And I told you, I said, years ago, they got away with that. They got away with it. Before body cam, they got away with it. They would have got away with it. They would have said, you know what? We sprayed you. And they probably would have beat him. We beat you. We're going to let this go away. Because we don't want to hurt your record. Because that's the one thing we do respect is militarism. We respect the military industrial complex. So this nigga caught a beating. Caught a spray. Might have threw you in jail for the night or something. And then the charge would be dropped the next morning. Won't say nothing else about it. Because your career. And years ago, they got away with it. Before you had body cams, before you had to speak the speech, the current political climate about Black lives, about the type of society we want to live in, about police improper behavior, police misconduct. Before all of that, they got away with it. And he wouldn't say anything about it because it would affect his career. Period. And I told you guys that. There's some towns in Virginia, there's some towns out there you don't need to be in. Some towns in them places you shouldn't be messing around in. Them boys are real nasty. I'm sorry, I went off subject. I really feel like this is another example of how far we've come. I really don't believe this idea that America's a better place. I heard it after Obama. I don't believe it. I think that the way they do things is different. And I think that you have those people that are still they're fighting to remain in the past. They're denying reality. It's like if it's raining outside and I'm like, I don't need a jacket. I still don't get wet. Walking to my car. And that's what you're looking at here is people that they're in that good old boy, we don't want to hear that. We're going to just suppress it. And they always make it out like we're okay with this, but they want to push so much other stuff. That's what gets me. We're okay. Black people were mistreated, but you want to push other stuff and you want to push anti-American stuff. They always come at you with that. And I think this video of this lieutenant colonel doing his speech shows you that that's bullcrap. That's lies. That we have a sense of the robust good, the public, that a better world is possible, but that we should not ignore the crimes and the injustices inflicted upon our ancestors, upon people who fought and died for liberty, for democracy, and for the chance at a better world. Thank you for listening.